Hey Cheva, what's going on? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Tes of Masechta Pesachim. Man, I feel like we've been waiting for Daf Mem Tes for the whole Masechta so far. I mean, I think Pesachim has been great thus far. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, I remember the last time I learned Pesachim, I remember feeling it's just a good Masechta, like, not too hard, not too easy. I mean, there was that Tuma and Tara there at the end of the first parak, but otherwise it's just like, I don't know, what do you expect from Gemara? Like, you expect it to be challenging. I think it's been challenging, but not overly so, which is nice. But one thing about Masechta Pesachim thus far is that we haven't really encountered too much of agadata. And agadata is fun, you know, like every so often to just have like a nice page where you can have some fun stuff to just pluck out. So this is one of those dafs. So let's get started. Starting at the top of Memtesim Aleph Arba, also Shechaliyos b'Shabbos. So if Erev Pesach falls out on a Shabbos, V'ayr Nesakom Lifnei Shabbos Divrei Reb Meir. So Reb Meir says that we need to burn all of the chametz before Shabbos begins. V'chacham Om Bizmanu. Chacham say no, you burn all the chametz at its proper time on Shabbos. Meaning, according to Reb Meir, you will. Wait, I don't know what the heck I just said. But according to Reb Meir, you're going to burn all the chametz on Friday. Meaning Erev Pesach is Shabbos. So you burn all the chametz on Friday. Now, it says the Chacham, you burn all the chametz bizmano, on its proper time. When it's proper time? The 14th, which is Shabbos, which is super interesting because it says that, I don't know, it sounds like, does that mean that they actually like burnt it in fire? I don't know. I guess that would be Pasha Pshat. I don't know. Interesting. They certainly get rid of it though, one way or another. Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok says Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok Truma milifnei Shabbos v'chulim bizmanu. That Truma they would get rid of on Friday because there weren't so many. It's harder to find people to take Truma. You have to be a Kohen in order to take Truma. So if you have Truma that's chametz, so get rid of it already on Friday because the chances of you finding a kohen on Shabbos to give it to is not so great. V'chulin bizmanan, but chulin you can burn on Shabbos or get rid of on Shabbos because hopefully you'll find some neighbors, some friends that you can give the chulin to on Shabbos. So you can, whatever's left over on the 14th, which is Shabbos, so then just burn it then. Tanya Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok Omer says Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok Pam Achas Shavas Abba b'Yavne. Super interesting. One time my father. Now, who is Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok's father? Was Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok's father like Rabbi Tzadok? Right? It says in the Gemara Gittin that one of the three things that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai asked for from who is it? Vespianus Caesar or something? Vespasian? Was one of the three things that he asked for was a doctor for Rabbi Tzadok because Rabbi Tzadok fasted for 70 years. So that the Beis Hamikdash shouldn't be destroyed. So I wonder if this was his son. So meaning, Rabbi Gamliel was like kind of the next generation. Rabbi Gamliel, right? We learned the Gemara in Shabbos and Daf Tesvav that the last four Nesiim in the Beis Hamikdash were Hillel, his son Shimon, and then his son Rabbi Gamliel Azaki, and then his son Shimon, the first of Shimon Gamliel, and then the first of Shimon Gamliel's son was Rabbi Gamliel. Now, that means that Rabbi Gamliel's father, who was the first of Shimon Gamliel, was the last of the Nesiim at the end of the Beis Hamikdash, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, of course, was at the end of the Beis Hamikdash. So it sounds like they were kind of the same time, which means that Rabbi Gamliel was probably the next generation. Also, Rabbi Gamliel is often with like Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, which were students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. So anyways, we see Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, who was also during that time of Rabbi Gamliel, going with his father. I don't know. So I'm asking if maybe this is Reb Tzadok from the story with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and they were going to Rabbi Gamliel for Shabbos in Yavne. And it was the 14th of Nisan that was on Shabbos. And Zunin, the I guess like the shamus of Rabbi Gamliel came and he said, that the time has come to burn the chametz. And I went after my father and we burnt together the chametz. On Shabbos, that was Erev Pesach. Now, again, I can't say for sure if this was like mamish, they were like burning it on Shabbos, but I guess Pasha Pshat, I don't know. There was that shaila, we had that machlokas the other day about, is right, Rabbi Yehuda said that bir chametz is davka burning it, but we weren't actually really able to prove that. So maybe they would just throw it into the river or something like that. If the 14th was Shabbos. Masnisen nu mishnah lechlishchot es pischov lamul es benov lechov sudas erisim veischomiv. Okie dokie. Busy day. You have a yid, and it's Erev Pesach, and he's got to go shech this korban Pesach. V'lamul es beno. He also just had a baby. Him and his wife had a baby. So it's the 8th day. So he's also going to do a bris for his son. V'lechov sudas erisim veischomiv. Now I guess he's also getting married, which is interesting because he also just had a baby. So maybe, alright, maybe at the same time that he's having a baby with one wife, he's maybe getting married to another wife. Alright. Sounds like a very busy time. It's also Erev Pesach. V'nizkar, and don't forget, he has to learn the daf that day also. V'nizkar sheish l'chometz b'soch beiso. And then he remembered, oh, darn it, I didn't get rid of my chometz. Great. Mamish, busy day. So if he's able to go back home, chaperein, and burn his chametz, and then also be able to do all the other things he's got to do that day, so then, okay, go back home, burn your chametz, and then go back and do all the other things you got to do. So fine. But if he's not going to be able to get back home and still do all the other mitzvahs he's got to do, so you know what? As Rashi points out, we said earlier that midoraisa, all you have to do is just be mevatel belibo. Just in your heart, you have to say that you're getting rid of the chametz. So rely on that, and then do all the other mitzvahs. Because if you go back and actually burn the chametz, you're not going to have chaperein to do all the other mitzvahs. But if you're on your way to save Yidden from Gentiles who may be endangering their lives, or from a crazy river, I guess people are stuck at sea and you can help them, or from bandits, or from a fireman, a police, or for some, fallen down building or of sorts, Yivato Belibo, well then certainly there's nothing to talk about. Don't go back home. Go to save the people and just be Mivato the Chametz in your heart. However, if he's just going in order to make an Eruve Tchumen, so that the next day on Shabbos, he'll be able to go to his friend's house in the next city, forget it. Certainly go back home and burn the chametz. Or I guess on Yom Tiv. Oh gosh, that brings up all sorts of shilas though. We had shilas about Eruv and on Yom Tiv, no? Anyways. If you have a Yid who left Jerusalem, and he realized that he's got some meat with him. He was eating a shlomim in Yerushalayim, and he didn't realize, and he took some of the meat with him, and now it's outside of Yerushalayim. Kodshim kalim has to be eaten in Yerushalayim. So, if we're talking about kodshim kalim, right? But certainly there's no kodshim meat, there's no korbanos that are going to be eaten outside of Jerusalem. So, you have a fellow and he left Jerusalem, and then he realizes, oh shoot, I have korban meat, imavet Sofim. So if he's already passed this place called Sofim, which is a city from where you're able to see the Beis HaMikdash, but past Sofim you can no longer see the Beis HaMikdash. So if you pass this town, Sorfo B'mkomo, so then just wherever you are, just make a little fire and just burn it. If he has not yet passed Sofim, if he could still see the Beis HaMikdash, so then so he goes to the place where they burn, like the Trumas Hadeshen, where they just kind of burn all the extra stuff from the Mizbeach, and you burn this meat over there. Now, how much meat do you have to have in order to go back? Or / how much chametz do you have to have in order to go back to burn it? Reb Meir Omer Zev Zev B'Chebeitza, Reb Yehuda Omer Zev Zev B'Chzai. So Reb Meir says both by the chametz as well as by the kodshim meat. So Reb Meir says that we're talking about the kibeitza, that if you have an egg's worth, you go back. Reb Yehuda Omer Zev Zev B'Chzai, Reb Yehuda says that we're talking about a kizayis. If you have a kizayis of meat or of chametz, you would, that's when we're discussing whether or not you would go back. The Chacham make a distinction, and they say if we're talking about Kodesh meat, then we're talking about a kazayis. If we're talking about chametz, then we're talking about a kibetza. Okay. Now the Gemara asks the kasha, V'raminu, what do you mean that we said that if one of the things that a person is going to do is to go to a sudas erusin? What's a sudas erusin? So we haven't really gotten into too much ksubis because we haven't learned ksubis, but basically, or kedushin. But basically the way it would work is that they would have this erusin period, right? You would betroth a woman, you would give her a ring, or there's a few ways you could do it, but let's just say you give her a ring, you say, Ariat Mikudeshesli b'tabah zo. So then, now they are engaged. And the practice at that time was to be engaged for a year, and then you would get married. So they would have a sudas erusin. They would have some kind of a suda, some kind of a feast. Okay. So we said in our Mishnah that if one of the mitzvahs that he had to do was to go to this feast by his future father-in-law, so then, so if he was able to go back and burn his chametz and also still be able to get to the feast, so then go back and burn your chametz. But if you're unable, if you wouldn't be able to go back to burn your chametz and still be able to chap arayin by the feast, so then just go to the feast, forget it, just be mevatel the chametz beliba. But we have a kasha, but we have a brayso that says that if somebody's going to eat sudas erusin by his future father-in-law, or to put out an eruv tchumin so that you can go to your friend's house the next day, yachzor miyad, immediately go back and burn the chametz. Forget about the sudas erusin. So on the one hand, our Mishnah is saying that sudas erusin is one of those things that it's a mitzvah, and only go back to burn the chametz if you can have time to burn the chametz and still get to the sudas erusin. Yet this brayso is saying, no, forget about the sudas erusin, just go back and burn the chametz. So Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan lo kasha, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi says, no problem. Our Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi, who says that sudas erusin is a mitzvah, and the brayso is Rabbi Yehuda, who says that sudas erusin is a rishus. The Tanya, as we learn in the brayso, sudas erusin rishus de Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi omer mitzvah, that Rabbi Yehuda says that sudas erusin is a rishus, and therefore forget about the sudas erusin, just go back and burn the chametz. And Rabbi Yossi says that sudas erusin is a mitzvah, and therefore only go back to burn the chametz if you'll have time to also get to the sudas erusin. V'ashadam Rav Chizda, now the Gemara says, but wait, Rav Chizda actually says that machlokas besuda shniya, that the machlokas between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda about whether or not sudas erusin is a rishus or a mitzvah is only regarding the second feast. But everyone agrees that the first feast would be a mitzvah, and therefore, only go back to burn the chametz if you'll also be able to make it to the feast. So apparently there were two feasts that they would have. You would have when you would get engaged, you would have one feast, and then there was another feast where you would give presents. That sounds fun. So the present feast was that's where there's machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda says it's rishus, it's optional, it's not obligatory, and Rabbi Yossi says that it's obligatory. But everyone agrees, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi agree that the first feast that you have is a mitzvah. So therefore, now that Rav Chizda says that the machlokas is only by the second feast, but by the first feast, everyone agrees it's a mitzvah. Well, then you can even say that both the Mishnah and the brayso are Rabbi Yehuda. V'lo kashin, it's no problem. The Mishnah is talking about the first feast, where it's everyone agrees it's a mitzvah, and therefore only go burn your chametz if you have enough time to get to the feast. Whereas the brayso is talking about the second feast, which Rabbi Yehuda says is a rishus, it's optional, and therefore certainly go back and burn the chametz. Tanya within the brayso, Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda, Anilo shamati el sudas erusin avalo savlonos. Says Rabbi Yehuda, I only heard that the sudas erusin, i.e. the first suda, is a mitzvah, but the second suda, where you give the gifts, is not a mitzvah, it's only rishus. The Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi says to Rabbi Yehuda, Ani shamati, I heard sudas erusin visavlonos, that both the first feast and the second feast are a mitzvah. And I wonder if when Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi are saying, I heard, if that's talking about they're both students of Rabbi Akiva, meaning Rabbi Yehuda was saying, I heard from Rabbi Akiva that only the first Suda is a mitzvah, but the second one's Rishus, whereas maybe Rabbi Yossi is saying, no, but I remember hearing from Rabbi Akiva that both of them are mitzvah. Tanya, speculation, but it would make sense, I think, because also we have another Gemara in Sanhedrin that says that Stam Mishnah is Reb Meir, Stam Sifra is Reb Yehuda, Stam Sifrei is Reb Shimon, V'chulan Alibud Rabbi Akiva. That all of them were based on Rabbi Akiva, meaning Rabbi Akiva was, had a lot of students, and of course Reb Yehuda, Reb Yossi, Reb Shimon, Reb Meir, all students of Rabbi Akiva, and they come up all the time in the Mishnais and in the Brises, and I think maybe they were all kind of teaching Rabbi Akiva's teachings, and I guess, maybe you could say that this machlokas over here is Rabbi Yehuda saying, look, I remember Rabbi Akiva saying this, and Rabbi Yossi is saying, I remember Rabbi Akiva saying that. Speculation. Tanya, we learn in a Brayso, Rabbi Shimon, Omer says, Rabbi Shimon, Kol Suda she'ena shel mitzvah, any feast that is not a mitzvah, in Talmud Chacham Rashi, lehanus mimeno, well then, a Talmud Chacham is not allowed to get benefit from it. Kagon Mai, what's an example of a Suda that is not a Suda shel mitzvah? So Amar Rabbi Yochanan Kagon Bas Kohen Yisrael Vas Talmud Chacham Na'amoretz. Very interesting that it says Rabbi Yochanan, for example, the daughter of a Kohen who marries a non-Kohen, a Yisrael, Vas Talmud Chacham Na'amoretz, or the daughter of a Talmud Chacham who marries an Amoretz, a Nudnik. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, the Rabbi Yochanan said, Bas Kohen Yisrael in Zivugan Ola Yafe. The Rabbi Yochanan says that if the daughter of a Kohen marries a non-Kohen, a Yisrael, in Zivugan Ola Yafe, then it's not going to work out. Maihi, what does it mean it's not going to work out? Amr of Chizda, so it says of Chizda, Almana, O Grusha, O Zera Einla. Well, either, oh my goodness gracious, now that is interesting. Wow, that's interesting. So it says of Chizda, either she's going to be an almana, or grusha, or she's going to get divorced, or zera inla, or she's not going to have any children. Okay, why is this so interesting? Think back to the Daf Mem Daled of Masechta Brachos. What does it say over there? It says that there was this place in Eretz Yisrael where there were, I don't remember, there were 60 daughters of Kohanim who were married to 60 brothers of Kohanim, something like that. There were all these, I can't remember the details, we have to look it up, but there were a whole bunch of daughters of Kohanim who were married to a whole bunch of brothers of Kohanim. Now, and it said in Bavel, they were only able to find the daughters of Rav Chizda who were married. Yeah, I think maybe we're saying that in Eretz Yisrael, there were 60 pairs of daughters of Kohanim who were married to 60 pairs of brothers who were Kohanim. And in Bavel, all they found were the two daughters of Rav Chizda who were married to Rami Bar Chama, Mar Ukva Bar Chama, but the daughters of Rav Chizda were Bas Kohens, and Rami Bar Chama and his brother were not. So that's interesting, number one, because Rav Chizda, who just said that if a Bas Kohen is married to a Yisrael, so then it's not going to work out. And yet his daughters were married to Yisraels. So that's one reason why it's interesting, although we'll see in a minute that maybe if they're Talmidei Chachamim, that might be different, and Bistama, Mar Ukva Bar Chama and Rav Idi Bar Chama were Talmidei Chachamim, and Rami Bar Chama. But the other reason it's interesting is Taka, because Rav Chizda's daughter was married to Rami Bar Chama, and then presumably he died, and then she married Rava. So we Taka see, oh my gosh, it gets better and better. So we Taka see that, so he's saying, look, my daughter was married to a Yisrael, and look what happened. He died. She became an almana. And then there was also another whole shtickle Torah that these guys I used to work with, they wanted to say, they have this whole shtickle Torah where they go back and forth trying to figure out if Rava was a Kohen or not. And maybe this could be a proof that Taka Rava was a Kohen, because after they were married the first time and Ram Bar Chama died, then maybe he said, you know what, let me marry my Kohen daughter to another Kohen. Wow, okay, sorry for the diversion, but that seems very, very interesting. So, Chizda o Amona o Grusha o Zer Ein Masnisa Tana, we talk learn in a Brisa, Krovra o Kovarto. Either he's going to bury her or she's going to bury him. Wow, or he's going to become very poor. Wow, this doesn't sound so geschmack. Ini, is this really so? But one second. But one second. Rabbi Yochanan actually said, meaning on the one hand, Rabbi Yochanan is saying that a Bas Kohen who marries a Yisrael, it's not going to work out. And yet Rabbi Yochanan said, somebody wants to become wealthy, Yidbak B'zar Shel Aharon, you should marry the offspring of Aharon, i.e. Kohanim, because certainly, if you have Torah and Kahuna in one place, you'll become wealthy. So we say, meaning when Rabbi Yochanan says that if you marry a Bas Kohen, well then you'll have Torah and Kahuna in one place, and certainly you'll be wealthy. Well, then you would have to be a Talmud Chacham. So certainly you would have to be a Talmud Chacham in order for that to be able to work. But if you're not a Talmud Chacham, so then it wouldn't work out very well by marrying a Bas Kohen if you are not a Kohen. The Gemara says Rabbi Yoshua Nosef Kahanta Cholash, that Rabbi Yoshua married a Bas Kohen and Cholash, and then he got sick. Very interesting. Clearly, Aaron HaKohen was not impressed that I should marry his offspring. That he should have to have a son-in-law like me. Interesting. Alright, Mistamar Rabbi Yoshua was a Talmud Chacham. Ravidi Bar Ovin, Nosif Kahanta. Ravidi Bar Ovin, he Rav Idi Bar Oven married a Bas Kohen, Nafkumine Trey Bnei Smiche, and he had two sons who were great rabbis. Rav Sheshes breder of Idi, Rav Yeshua breder of Idi. So it worked out well for him. Amar Rav Papa, Ilona Sivna Kanta Lo Yasri, says Rav Papa, if not for the fact that I married the daughter of a Kohen, I would not have gotten wealthy. Amar Rav Kahana says Rav Kahana, Ilona Sivna Kanta Lo Galoi. Interesting. So Rav Kahana says that if I would not have married a Bas Kohen, well then I wouldn't have been exiled, which is also interesting because it seems that Rav Kahana was not actually a Kohen. And he's saying that since he was a Yisrael and he married a Bas Kohen, that is why he got exiled. Amrullah, they said to him, Torah Galisa, but you got exiled to a place of Torah, right? The Gemara in Bava Kama describes that Rav Kahana was exiled from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, and then he went to learn by Rabbi Yochanan, who then killed him and brought him back to life. So he answers, Lo galoi kidigali inche. Well, I didn't get exiled like most people get exiled. Meaning, to make aliyah is usually a very nice thing, but it's not a very nice thing if you're on the run. Somebody who gets benefit from a feast, an optional feast, will be exiled. Okay, Shneimar ve'ochlim karim mitzon, that they were eating very fatty, like fattened sheep, v'agalim mitoch marbek, and calves from the stalls, and it says lochinata yiglu b'rosh kolim. Therefore, you will be exiled at the head of all the exiles. Yikes! So it sounds like you don't want to fress too much. Tanu Rabbanan. Now listen to this. So one second. So we saw that basically, if a Yisrael marries a Bas Kohen, it's risky. If you're not a Talmud Chacham, so it sounds like it's not going to work out so geschmack. And even if you are a Talmud Chacham, there was kind of mixed results, right? Rabbi Yoshua didn't work out so good. Rav Kahana had his little reservations. But then you have Rav Papa and Ravidi Bar Oven, who Taka worked out for them. So, alright. Do it at your own risk. Tanu Rabbanan, Rabbi Stakot Talmud Chacham Amar B'Sudasu B'Chol Makom. So if Machriv, okay, let's listen to this. If you have a Talmud Chacham who's Pashat a glutton, sound like he's mamish addicted to food. So then look what's going to happen. So if Machriv is Beso, he's going to destroy his family. Ma'amin Asishto, he's going to make his wife a widow. Miyasam is Kozalov and his children are going to be orphans, and he's going to forget all of his learning. All people are going to be fighting with him because he forgets everything that he knows, and he's not going to be able to say coherent things. Nobody's going to listen to what he says. He's going to desecrate the name of heaven, v'shem Rabo, and the name of his teachers, v'shem Aviv, the name of his father, v'garim shem Ralo, ulevanav, ulevnei atzov kol adoros. He's going to cause a bad name, a tarnished name for him, for his children, and his descendants for all generations. Holy shnikes. Now, as Rashi points out, this isn't just somebody, who likes to eat a lot. This is somebody who has like an eating addiction. Right, somebody who, mamish, he's for some reason, he's gonna have to keep up his rate of eating, that he's going to go leave town in order to eat more or something like that, and then his wife is effectively going to be a widow, and his children are effectively going to be orphans, and he's really going to create quite a mess. So Mahi, what does it mean that for all generations his name and his children's names will be tarnished? Amar Abaye says, Karule, they're going to call the children Bar Machim Tanure, the son of an oven warmer. Rava Amar Bar Markid Bekove. Rava says the son of a tavern dancer, somebody who just dances in bars. Rav Papa Amar says, Rav Papa Bar Malchich Pinche, a plate licker. Rav Shmaya Amar Bar Mach Rava, the son of a guy who just folds up his clothing and then goes to sleep on it. Wow. Sounds like things kind of deteriorated there. The rabbis taught, a person should sell everything that he owns in order to marry the daughter of a Talmud Chacham, of a Torah scholar, because if anything happens to him, if he dies or if he gets exiled, at least he'll know that his children will be Talmidei Chacham. Very interesting. And do not marry the daughter of an Amaretz, Shemeis Ogola, Ban of Amaretz, because then if he dies or gets exiled, his children will be Amaretz, his unlearned people. Now, I suspect if we saw Taka Gemara in Masech the Brachos, it might have been Daf Yud Zayin, but where Rebbe, he was basically saying that about people who work on the fields, and he was saying, look, even though I go to do what I do, my work is in the city and their work is in the fields, and then you might think that my reward is better than theirs. We say, no, that's not necessarily true, right? Is that where we say maybe as long as you have the right intention or something? Can't remember, I'd have to look it up. But I think that there might be an assumption back then that Talmidei Chachamim were also wealthier, they were educated, they were, it was like a socioeconomic thing to be a Talmud Chacham, and therefore, and what was I talking about? Therefore he's saying, it's a worthwhile investment to sell everything that you have in order to marry the daughter of a Talmud Chacham, because it's an investment in their future. It's like almost investing everything you have to go to an Ivy League school, and collecting debt in order to go to a top school so that that you'll be set, or whatever. I don't know. It's an interesting kind of thing to think about. What do you guys think? Think we should go weiter? Fine. So, where am I? Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis told the Olam Yimkor Adam Kol Masha Yeshlo V'Yisa Bas Talmud Chacham V'Yasi Bitul Talmud Chacham. Person should sell everything that he has, in order to marry the daughter of a Talmud Chacham, or that he should marry the daughter of a Talmud Chacham, or he should marry his daughter off to a Talmud Chacham, right? So he should marry the daughter of a Talmud Chacham, or he should marry off his daughter to a Talmud Chacham. Mashal inve agefen b'inve agefen. It's a metaphor to grapes being mixed with other grapes. Tavano miskabel, it's something beautiful and acceptable upon the people. V'lisa bas Amaretz, but do not marry the daughter of an Amaretz, of an ignoramus. Mashal inve agefen b'inve asneh, because that would be compared to the grapes of a grapevine mixing together with the grapes of just a bush. Davar ka'ur ve'enu miskabel, something disgusting, and people don't appreciate it very much. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Olam Yimkor Adam Kol Masha Yeshlo V'Yisa Bas Talmud Chacham. A person should always sell everything that he has in order to marry the daughter of a Talmud Chacham. Lo matzu bas Talmud Chacham. If it doesn't find the daughter of a Talmud Chacham to marry, Yisa Bas Gedolei Ador, then marry the daughter of a good person. Says Rashi, Anshe Ma'aseh v'Tzadikim, people who have good actions and are tzadikim. Lo matzav bas gedolei ador yisa bas rosh knesos. If you can't find a gedolei ador, so then marry the daughter of the head of a community. Lo matzav bas rosh knesos yisa bas gaboy tzedakah. If you didn't find that, so then marry the daughter of the person in charge of the charity, because usually they give a good gishmaka person to be the head of the charity. Lo matzav bas gaboy tzedakah yisa bas melamdei tinokos. If you didn't find the daughter of the gaboy tzedakah, marry the daughter of a teacher. But do not marry the daughter of an Am Haaretz, sheketz and shosei and sheretz. Because they are like, I don't know, bugs, and their daughters are all, and their wives are bugs, different kinds of bugs. And it says about their daughters, wow, cursed is the person who sleeps with an animal. Oh my goodness. Things deteriorated very quickly over there. Tani, we learn in Brisa, Rabbi Omer says, Rabbi, Am Haaretz also lecho basar. Person who's in Am Haaretz, who's an ignoramus, he's not allowed to eat meat. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Zos Toras Habeim Va'ov. This is the Torah of the animal and the bird. Kol ha'osek b'Torah, mutar lecho basar behem va'ov. Somebody who learns Torah, so then he can eat the flesh of animals and chickens and birds. But if you don't learn Torah, then you're not allowed to eat the meat of animals and birds. Wow. Amr Belazar, Am Haaretz mutar oh my goodness gracious. Mutar lenocho b'yom kippurim shchalios b'Shabbos. Ay, what is going on over here? So it says Belazar that in Am Haaretz you're allowed to stab him to death on Yom Kippur that falls out on a Shabbos. Amrulo Tamidav, the student said to him, Rebbe, Amor the Shochto, shouldn't you say that you should slaughter him? Why are you going to stab him to death? Slaughter him. Amrulo, and he said to them, Zeton bracha v'ze'enu ton bracha. Well, to slaughter this Am Haaretz, you need to make a bracha. But just to stab him to death, you don't need to make a bracha. Oh my goodness gracious, what is going on over here? Rabbi Belazar says, Rabbi Belazar, Am Haaretz also the Slavos imo baderech, that in Am Haaretz you're not allowed to travel with him. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Ki chayecha v'orech yamecha. Well, because the pasuk says about the Torah that it is your life and the lengthener of your days, the extender of your days. Al chayev lochas. Now, if he doesn't learn Torah, then clearly he doesn't care about his own life. So then al chayev chaver lo kol sheken. Well, then certainly if he doesn't care about his life, he's not going to care about your life. Amr Shmuel bar Achmani, Amr Yochanan, Am Haaretz mutar lekoro kadog. Says Shmuel bar Achmani, the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Shouldn't that be Rabbi Yonasan? I don't know. Am Haaretz mutar lekoro kadog. Now Am Haaretz, you're allowed to flay him like a fish. Amr Shmuel bar Yitzchak umigabo. There's Shmuel bar Yitzchak, and you can tear him apart from his back so that he dies quickly. What's going on over here? Wow. Tani, we're learning the Brisa. Amr Bakiva, says Rabbi Kiva, Kshayisi Am Haaretz. Or says Rabbi Kiva that when he was in Am Haaretz, so Rabbi Kiva only started learning when he was 40. So he says, before then, when I was in Am Haaretz, Amarti, I said, Miyitein li Talmud Chacham v'nashchenu kachamor. Who will find me a Torah scholar because I want to bite him like a donkey bites? Amr lo Tamidav, his student said to him, Rebbe, Emor kakelev, say like a dog. And he said to him, Zenoshech v'shover etzem, Zenoshech v'noshover etzem. No, a donkey bites more stark. That if a donkey bites, it's going to break a bone. Dog doesn't necessarily break a bone. Wow. Sounds like there was some friction there between the Talmidei Chacham and the Am Haaretz. Namei Aratzim. Tani, we learn in the Brisa, Reb Meir Omer, Reb Meir would say, Kol amesi bitul Am Haaretz, somebody who marries his daughter to an Am Haaretz, ki lukovso manichasa lifnei Ari. It's as if he ties her up and he gives her to a lion. Ma'ari daris v'ochel ve'en lo boshes panim, just like a lion tramples and eats and doesn't have any boshes panim, any embarrassment. I don't know what the word is. Af Am Haaretz makova ve'en lo boshes panim. Also, an Am Haaretz will hit and like kilu rape his wife because without any embarrassment. Yikes. Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer, Omer says, Rabbi Eliezer, Umle anu tzrichin loyem lemasu matan ayu hargenos anu. Well, okay, there you maybe get some insight over there. It says Rabbi Eliezer that if not for the fact that we needed them for business, and I guess that there was like just a financial understanding there, and I guess if they would kill us, then there wouldn't be very good business for them. So if not for the fact that we had business relationships with the Am Ha'aratzim, they would pasha kill us. Wow. Tani Reb Chia says, Reb Chia teaches, Kol ha'osek b'Torah lefnei Am Ha'aretz. Anybody who studies Torah in front of an Am Ha'aretz, kilu bo'el arusasu b'fanav, it's as though he sleeps with his betrothed wife in front of him. Kilu. Let's go weiter for a second. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Torah tzivulanu Moshe Morasha, that it says that the Torah, that Moshe has commanded us, has taught us the Torah. Morasha, it is an inheritance. Atikre Morasha ele me'orasa. Don't read it an inheritance, a Morasha, rather a me'orasa, a betrothed woman. So therefore, the Torah is like a betrothed woman to us, and therefore, if you learn Torah in front of an Am Ha'aretz, so you're basically like interacting with his betrothed woman in front of him, and you're studying Torah and he's not. Says the Gemara Gedol, Sina shesonin Am Ha'aretz Talmid Chacham Yosem misina shesonin Ovdei Kochavim es Yisrael. Wow. So the amount of hate that the Am Ha'aretz, the unlearned Yidden, have towards Talmidei Chachamim is greater than that the Gentiles have towards the Talmidei Chachamim. Wow. And Shosei Yosem, man, and their wives, even worse than them. Tana Shana Uferish Yosem Mikulim. But the worst is somebody who has a yeshiva education, somebody who studied Torah and decided that this isn't for them. They're the worst, because they know what's going on the inside, and they really hate the Talmidei Chachamim. And I guess maybe that's why we're having some friction here between the Am Ha'aratzim and the Talmidei Chachamim, because apparently there was such a friction. It's kind of mutual. Talmidei Chachamim don't like the Am Ha'aratzim very much, and the Am Ha'aratzim don't like the Talmidei Chachamim very much. Wow. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Shisha Dvarim Nemu Ba'am Ha'aretz. There are 6 things that are said by an Am Ha'aretz. In Mosin Lo and Eidos, we don't have them give, we don't appoint them as witnesses to testify. Like if you have, I don't know, like, let's say, you need something and you need witnesses to testify about it. Don't call up an Am Ha'aretz. And also we won't receive testimony from them. And don't tell them secrets, because they'll spill the beans. And also we do not appoint them as representatives for orphans. And we do not appoint them as the representative for charity. And as we said earlier, we also do not travel with them. Those who say, so we don't even have to announce his lost object, right? If you find the lost object, you announce it. So I saw in the art school that there was actually a note, like, how do you know that this lost object belongs to an Am Ha'aretz? I don't know, I guess there's different ways. Maybe you saw it fall from him, but you're not sure who it is. I didn't really get too much into it. V'Tanakama, Zimnin Dunafik Mini Zar Ma'alya V'Achile. So says the Tanakama, so the reason why the Tanakama excluded this Hashavas Aveda thing from Am Ha'aretz is because, well, maybe you can actually have somebody Gishmak who comes out from the, maybe he was an Am Ha'aretz, but you can have descendants who were Gishmak Yidden. Shenema, as the pasuk says, Yochanan v'tzadik Yilbash, that a Rasha may prepare something, but a tzaddik will end up wearing it. So here also, if you return it to the Am Ha'aretz, even though he's shtikol nudnik, but his offspring may be Gishmak. Okay, so going back to the Mishnah, we said that if somebody leaves Jerusalem and he realizes, I took some kosher meat with me, so depends how far he is, maybe he has to go back. And then we said, how much meat does he have to have in order for this to even be a question? So Rabbi Yehuda says a kazayis, and the Chachamim, no, where am I? So Rabbi Meir said a kibetza, and Rabbi Yehuda said a kazayis. So the Gemara asks, L'meimer, is that to say, Rabbi Meir savar kibetza u'du chashiv, Rabbi Yehuda savar kazayis nami chashiv? Is that to say that according to Rabbi Meir, what's significant is an egg's worth, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, what's significant is an olive's worth? But we have a kasha at kama mezamnin when it comes to making a zimun by benching all the way back to brachas. So we say, how much food do you have to eat? How much bread bread. How much do you have to eat in order to have to make a zimun? So at kazayas. So Rabbi Meir is saying until a kazayas. Rabbi Yehuda Omer at kibetza, and Rabbi Yehuda says a kibetza. So what's the deal? So over here, Rabbi Meir is saying a kibetza and Rabbi Yehuda is saying kazayas, but by benching, Rabbi Meir says a kazayis and Rabbi Yehuda says a kibetza. So Rabbi Yochanan muchlefes hashita. So Rabbi Yochanan says, okay, well, I don't know, somebody's got it backwards. It's hard to tell which one's backwards, but one of them is backwards. Rabbi says, no, really, you don't need to flip anything around. Over there, they are arguing about psukim, right? By benching, the machlokas between Reb Meir and Rabbi Yehuda is about how to understand the pasuk. But over here, it's about how to it's just a difference in approach. Hasan b'krai plige, by benching, they're arguing about psukim. Reb Meir sav v'chalta zo achila v'savata zo shtia v'achila b'chzayis. Reb Meir says that, look, the pasuk says v'chalta v'savata. Achalta is eating, savata is drinking, v'achila b'chzayis, and eating is a kazayis. So therefore, Reb Meir says that by benching, the amount that you have to eat is a kazayis. Reb Yehuda savar v'chalta v'savata achila sheish b'asvia. Reb Yehuda says no. When it says v'chalta v'savata, it means that you have to eat enough to be satisfied. So be'ezo zok b'chabetza. And how much do you have to eat in order to be satisfied? An egg's worth. Whereas over here, by whether or not you have to go back with psar kodshim, or also if you have chometz, so it's about theory. Rav Meir savar chazraso k'tumaso. Rav Meir holds that going back to burn the kodshim or the chometz is like regarding tumah. Just like tumah. Tumas ochlim, the shear is an egg's worth. So also going back is going to be an egg's worth. For Rabbi Yehuda savar, whereas Rabbi Yehuda holds chazraso ki isuro, that going back is like the amount that creates an isur. Ma isur b'chazayis av chazraso b'chazayis. Just like an isur, if you have chometz, it's a kazayis, or this meat that if you have a kazayis of meat that goes outside of the azara, let's say. So, or Par Yerushalayim, if it's Kachim Kalim, so then we're talking, the shear is a kazayis. So here also the amount that you have to go back for is a kazayis, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Reb Nosson Omer, Zev Zev B'shtei Beitzim, V'lo Lo Chacham. Reb Nosson says that actually both by chometz and by this psar kodshim, we're talking about both by chometz and by psar kodshim, we're talking about an amount that is 2 eggs worth, but the Chacham did not agree with that. Well, Chaver, that was Daf Mem Tes of Masechta Pesachim. I hope you enjoyed. There was some interesting agadatas over there. I hope you enjoyed them. I didn't have a chance to write everything down, so I don't have such a stark chazara, but I hope you enjoyed the daf nonetheless, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.